My dad finds out how much I earn, so now he wants my house for my pregnant stepsister who works in questionable ways. Before I start the story, I have to say that it seems false to me, but since it's quite entertaining, I'll leave it here for anyone who wants to keep listening. So, my dad just discovered how much money I'm making, and now he's demanding that I give up my home. That's right, he wants to move into my house with my stepmother and my sister, and I don't plan on doing it. I mean, I've invested everything I have into my work to get to where I am, and I'm not going to start over just for these people. Here's the plan. My dad, who is usually selfish, petty, and has been absent lately, recently found out how much I earn and decided to kick me out of my own house in the name of family. My stepsister, the little pearl of dad, who never does anything wrong, magically got pregnant. Obviously, with her goal of becoming a model for rich men, it was hard for her to find a place to stay. Now Dad wants to fix everything, and unfortunately, I'm the solution. So I have to give up my house and my hard-earned money for this woman because she's made all the wrong decisions in her life. Now I'm the one that my dad openly rejected as a responsibility multiple times, but ever since he found out about my new house, my job, and surprisingly, also my income, he realized the importance of the fact that we share the same blood. Well, that leads him to frequently remind me who my father is. He also aims to strengthen the bonds I have with his wife and daughter. It's fine that she's my dad's daughter, but he pushed me away when I was younger, and I couldn't form any relationship with my stepmother or stepsister, which I'm actually happy about. So before everyone starts, I just want to remind everyone that I'm here just to vent my emotions. You might not like my story, and you might disagree, but anyway, I'm just informing you because, frankly, I don't have anyone else to tell this to. Now, let's introduce my half-sister Aslan, who is about 5 years younger than me, and the profession she chose in life is quite disrespectful. My dad treats her like a little princess. Literally, my dad is delusional because this woman does nothing but be an escort, sleeping with anyone, being a failed model, and this man calls her his pride. Yes, you read that right. I guess he doesn't know what she does. I mean, who's going to tell him? I'm not very conservative, but I'm trying to focus on my moral values and my career. I court women when I find time to try to get to know them better, and sometimes there's a spark, but other factors come into play like distance and availability issues. Other times, I just don't understand why my relationships fail. I refrain from sleeping with random people. I believe I should wait for the right woman. Having a high number of sexual partners disgusts me, and I don't know why guys brag about it like it's a medal. Anyway, this is how I apply it in my own life. Unfortunately, my stepsister has the opposite opinion. She's probably lost count of her physical partners by now. That alone is gross enough for me. There's also the fact that it's extremely dangerous. Some men like to do weird things, and I just don't understand how anyone could think it's okay to work in that way. Then, she's uploaded these inappropriate videos and photos of herself online just to make money, and it's not like she's doing well at it. She probably doesn't know how to make that business work, but for some reason, it's a failure. How do I know all this, you may wonder? Well, here's an embarrassing story. My friend told me that she once sent him a message inviting him to grab a drink and asked if he wanted to have some fun. She sent him the link to her page, and he showed it to me. She was always broke, asking Dad for money, so I don't think it's going very well for her. I can't bring myself to ask her directly, and I've never told anyone about it. Once I saw her answering a call and then getting into a car with an older man. He gave her flowers, and they just drove off in the car. She used to sneak into the house through the window. I realized this when I used to come home from college during vacations. I don't know if she still does it, but I don't want to be part of any of that. I've recently gained respect in my job, and I'm happy about it. I haven't lived much with the new family since Dad was clear enough to send me away whenever he had the chance. But I've been close enough to the dynamics to say that my stepsister takes after her mother, Marisa. Marisa was, or at least she thought she was, attractive at one point. She used to be a flight attendant and caught the attention of some tasteless men, like my dad. Now she's a typical Karen with a disfigured face, if you know what I mean. Her hands and nails are longer than her lipstick, and she runs some sort of neighborhood daycare. It's strange how parents would leave their kids with a woman who has hands like scissors. In a way, it's ironic. She could poke out a small child's eyes. Anyway, she's as nosy as her nails. has an opinion about everything, and loves causing problems in other people's lives. Her voice is worse than Janice's from Friends, and she has more plastic in her body than the ocean. She's as fake as imitation leather. She influences Dad for the worse, and I think it was one of the main reasons why Dad didn't hesitate to send me to boarding school when I was 8 years old, because she didn't want to raise a child who wasn't hers. As for my dad, he's kind of the main problem in all of this. He thinks everything he does in life is justified. He says he regrets having me because I'm not like him. Thank God I'm like my mom. She was a woman of steel, knew her priorities, and took good care of my dad, but they drifted apart. She used to tell me that my dad wasn't a bad person, just different, and no matter what happened, he would always be my dad, and I should never forget that. But she was a good soul. She didn't want to poison my thoughts against my dad. I'm sure he was as unbearable for her as he is now. They separated and got divorced a few months later, and I was 4 years old at the time. 2 months after the divorce, my dad married Marisa. They had Aslan when I was 5, and then my mother passed away in a car accident. I can't forget it because she had come to pick me up from school, and she was always punctual. The only time she was 10 minutes late, it felt like an hour to me. But it was only 10 minutes. A drunk driver hit her at an intersection. He survived, she didn't. He spent a few years in prison, and I was left alone forever. I waited and waited at school, and it took them 2 hours to come pick me up. Finally, I have a stable job, earn well, and manage a few small businesses on my own. I've worked very hard since I turned 18, and I've been making money ever since. I went to university, just visiting during the holidays, so I've been living on my own since I was 18. I've put a lot of effort into getting where I am, and I recently bought a house. It's a nice place, much better than the shared apartment I had with my friends. It was a life goal, and I thought I would never achieve it. The thing is, I just moved in last month. I may not get along well with my family, but basic decency meant I involved them in such an important moment. So I also invited them to the housewarming. My dad's reaction to the situation was pretty sad to see. He looked envious, to be honest, a little upset. A week passed, and I got a call from him. I was at work, managing a complicated project. He said he wanted to meet because it was urgent, and I agreed. I went home and saw a very angry Marisa and a few others with puffy faces and red eyes glaring at me from the living room. Dad was in the kitchen, pulling beer bottles from the fridge. He offered me one, and I politely declined. I was more concerned about what he was going to say. I asked him what he wanted from me, and he raised his eyebrows and answered with another question, asking if I'd finally started worrying about us. I frowned, confused, because I didn't understand what he meant. He asked me to join Marisa in the living room. I nodded and went to the sofa in front of them and sat down. Dad came in and sat with them, facing me. He put his beer bottle on the coffee table and leaned back. Then he asked me if I was blind. There was a pause, confusion on my part, and probably anger on his before he continued. He said that either I was blind or I chose not to see things for what they really were. He said I had probably put myself on a pedestal since I got my house and had refused to care for the people who truly mattered to me. I asked him what he meant by all of this and asked him to be clearer. He scoffed sarcastically and then said that I was indifferent to the elephant in the room. I had chosen not to see that the family was in danger and decided not to offer any help or be of any support. I obviously just asked what danger he was referring to. He looked at Aslan, who rolled her eyes, and announced that she was pregnant. Like any normal person, I wanted to congratulate her, but before I could do that, she started crying. Marisa hugged her and told me I should know what was going on at home, that I should care and ask enough questions. Dad said he had just found out she was pregnant and that the guy responsible had left her. Marisa added that Aslan had decided to move forward with the pregnancy and that this was what we should base our future decisions on. All I could say was, "Can I afford this?" Well, I got a look from Aslan and Marisa, and honestly, I said it in good faith. It was a concern in my head. I had already assumed that maybe they wanted me to contribute money to help her. Then my dad stood up and came to sit next to me. He said that he was the reason he called me. He said he was a good father to his girl, and maybe my mom didn't teach me how to be a good brother, but brothers would give their lives for the well-being of their sisters. I sighed and asked him what he wanted me to do about it. He just smiled, patted me on the back, and said, "You're a good boy." I smiled falsely, and that smile faded the moment Dad said the next word. "You're giving your house to Aslan." "No, I'm not," I answered. Dad frowned and asked me why not. Then I told him I could help with money, but the house is mine. I can lend her a room until she can pay for it. Dad stayed there, sitting, and yelled, "Nonsense!" "Well, to me it makes perfect sense, Dad," I said, but he insisted that I not just give her the house, but also move out and buy another one for myself. I argued that Aslan can't even pay the bills or manage the house if she has a baby and is unemployed. Dad told me that those would be my responsibilities too. "Sorry, no way," I said. I was furious, but I had to keep my respect, so I stood up and told him that this wasn't possible and that I was leaving now. And I left. He didn't stop there. A week later, he showed up at my house while I was at work. I don't know how he got in or where he got the keys from, but when I got home, I saw men taking boxes out of the house, boxes full of my stuff. I rushed in and asked them what they were doing, and they told me that the owner of the house had ordered them to take the things out. I screamed that I was the owner and that they should bring my stuff back inside and leave now. Well, I lost it. But this was the last thing I expected to witness when I got home. I went inside to find my dad and Aslan still there, demanding I do what siblings are supposed to do. I told them to leave, but they didn't listen. Then I said I would call the police. That's when they finally left, insulting me and everything. Now I know this is a lot to read, but it was much worse in person. It's been a week, and I feel a little bad about it. That's why I'm posting here. I was wrong. I feel like they need me, and I shouldn't cut them off like this. But I also feel like there are limits to what I'm willing to allow them to do. It infuriates me how disconnected and indifferent they were to me growing up. But now they expect me to hand over my life. I can't even involve my friends in this. You are all I have. Update 1. Hello, I hope you're doing well. It's been a week since I posted, and honestly, I didn't expect it to get the attention it did. I read the comments as they came in and had a lot of questions about many things, but soon I decided not to completely cut off contact with my family. This was because I received a call from Aslan. She said she wanted to meet with me, and I agreed. She asked if we could meet at my house, but I was still recovering from the scene that happened last time, so I insisted on meeting somewhere else. We went to a cafe, and at first, she seemed pretty uneasy. Normally, she's pretty arrogant and rude, but she seemed quite different from herself. We sat in a corner, and she told me she had recently broken up with her boyfriend. I replied that I had no idea, since Dad said the guy who got her pregnant had left her. She shook her head and said that's what Dad thought. Then I asked her what the real story was, and she told me that Dad thought her boyfriend had left her because he had commitment issues, but in reality, she was the one with commitment problems. Yes, I know, it's shocking. She said she really only cared about this guy, but he found out some things about her just days before she told him about the pregnancy. When they met, he wanted to confront her about, those things, but she spoke first, which made him furious. He got really mad and punched a hole in the wall. She said she was scared. He then told her he was breaking up with her and left without hearing her side. She's been trying to call him constantly, but he won't answer. He only sent her one message saying she needed to get rid of the baby. I know Aslan isn't a saint, but this guy isn't blameless either. I asked her what those things were that he found out, and she said it would be weird to tell a brother. I understood she was probably talking about her modeling and things like that, so I shrugged and said it was okay if she didn't want to tell me. Before I could speak to ask her why she wanted to meet, she took a deep breath and let it out. Then she told me she had been involved in shady things. I swallowed, worried because I really didn't want to hear confirmation of all my suspicions, but I did. She told me she wanted to paint and become an artist, but Marisa told her that wouldn't give her a good life or money. Aslan was told she needed to find a man as soon as possible. Pretty soon, she started attracting older men, which at first disgusted her. When she told Marissa, she said it was a good thing because older men had money. Aslan was only 19 at the time, and Marissa told her that university wouldn't do much for her. It wouldn't give her a comfortable life. Aslan had youth, and many men were willing to pay for that. So Aslan decided she wanted to be a model. She tried and went to many modeling agencies, but none seemed interested in her. Then she met a guy in his 40s who told her he could get her a job. He took her to parties, bought her expensive clothes and jewelry for events, and she was happy until they talked about her first job. It turns out she had to sell her time to a man in exchange for modeling. She thought it would be just, a dinner, but it turned out to be spending the night with him. She got a small modeling job where she took pictures for a small brand, but that was all. A few more men used her, and although she expected to get a job in exchange, they told her she wasn't selected. She later found out that the guy investing in her was actually selling her. He was profiting from her. She thought it wasn't wise to confront him because she was afraid something would happen to her, so she told him she didn't want to continue modeling and was fine with minimum wage jobs. Fortunately, he let her go without any issues. After that, she tried working as a waitress in bars, which was tough for her, but she still did it. She also said that Marissa belittled her for choosing to do small, lesser jobs. Marissa told her that women are the beauty of this world and should only be there to shine and smile like ornaments. They need to be well taken care of, and so on. So, Aslan started dating men just for dinners, but charged them for it. She said there were a lot of lonely men who just wanted to talk, but that also ended with stalkers and obsessive men who thought they'd get more from her than what they paid for. She decided that talking to men made them feel connected to her, and it was more problematic than even sleeping with them. So she started being an escort. It worked well until a friend told her about online modeling, and she tried it, but she wasn't really good at handling a camera and editing things. She wasn't social enough, and it required a lot of work, so that didn't work either. Then, she met her boyfriend, an ex-colleague. He was a barista, and they ran into each other again. She liked him a lot, but he was a little too clingy, possessive, and didn't trust her much, even though he had every reason to doubt her because, in fact, she was still modeling and escorting without him knowing. Well, she stopped being an escort and model completely, and her boyfriend started taking care of her with the little money he earned, and she was fine with that. Marissa, however, wasn't. But then she got pregnant, and her boyfriend found out everything. She said she had several men on a list who could be potential fathers. They all offered to support the baby and her, and one of them even proposed marriage. But she knew they were all doing it because they thought they were the only ones. Which is ridiculous, as they know she's an escort. But she doesn't tell them directly because that pays the bills, and would probably help her with the baby. She said she decided to tell me all of this because she couldn't tell Dad. Dad thinks she's just been modeling here and there, making a little money, and that she had a boyfriend who left her when he should have stayed. Marissa knows most of this and suggests she marry the guy who proposed and make him believe he's the father. But Aslan doesn't know what to tell Dad. Plus, she doesn't want to marry that guy because he's strange, older, and she doesn't want to lie to anyone, which I don't think is true. I asked her what she wanted me to do, and she said that some financial support would be fine. She also wants me to make up with Dad. She said I should agree with whatever Dad asks, and then move out for a while, and then maybe come back when things aren't as tense. How is that a solution? I respectfully declined her offer, and told her I could contribute some money, but I didn't agree to move out of my own house. She told me I was selfish for thinking that way. Well, I had no doubt about not helping her after hearing all of this. She said Dad was right about me and that I deserved to be sent to an orphanage and not be cared for when I needed a place to live. Well, that hurt. That's all for now. Just needed to get this off my mind. I'll update you soon. Update 2. Another week has passed and some things have happened. I thought I'd update you, so thanks for the previous support. You're all such a relief, really. After meeting with Aslan, I received a call from Dad. He wanted to meet at a bar and sort a few things out. I agreed to go and meet him. We sat at the bar and he told me he knew how much I was making. I asked why that mattered, and he said he knew I could afford to buy another house in a few years. I shrugged and told him I already had a house, and this conversation should end here. He insisted that I didn't have a family yet, and that it's difficult for a woman to raise a child alone. He said the child needed a safe space to call home. So, I reminded Dad that I had been living with them long enough, and that didn't seem to be an issue. A small baby wouldn't hurt. I also asked what she would be doing living alone in a whole house while pregnant. I said she needed to be surrounded by people to take care of her. That's when Dad surprised me again. He said that he and Marisa would also move into my house with Aslan. I simply couldn't believe what I was hearing. Before I could react, the bartender let out a sarcastic laugh. Dad got offended and asked him what he thought was so funny. Aslan replied, "He said she uses everyone and then discards them." My dad asked if he knew who he was talking about, and the bartender nodded, saying it was her boyfriend. My eyes went wide. So this was the guy. Dad clenched his fist and spoke sternly to the guy, asking why he thought it was okay to leave his girlfriend now that she was pregnant. The guy raised his hands and told Dad that he wasn't responsible for the family in question and that he wasn't interested in raising a child. He said it wasn't his. Dad asked him to explain why he thought that, and the guy smiled, telling us that he had had a vasectomy the previous year because he didn't want kids, but Aslan still got pregnant. He found out she was driving around with different men after lying about it. When Aslan finally told him they were having a baby, that was obviously the last straw for him. He couldn't have a child. So that confirmed everything, and he told Aslan that she had been deceiving him all along, and he knew it. She confirmed everything. All I could see was Dad's face changing from anger to surprise and disappointment, while my ears focused on the bartender's voice. The guy got up from the stool without saying a word and left. Later that night, he texted me saying I had to pick up Marisa for her yoga class. I don't know what happened after that, but I'm sure it was something. The next day, I found Aslan at my door crying. She told me she had ruined everything, and I let her inside to avoid making a scene. I calmed her down and assured her that I hadn't told Dad anything. It was her boyfriend, who turned out to be the bartender at the bar where Dad and I had gone. She told me that Dad had said she should quit everything and stay at home, that he was upset with her and never thought she would resort to such practices. He told her to straighten up and find a good man. Then he also pointed out that her chances of finding a good man were pretty slim now. I listened to her and hugged her. She said she was sorry for thinking it was me because Dad had just come home after meeting with me when he confronted her. I forgave her and she went home, complaining to me about how pathetic she felt. She mentioned that Marisa was pretty quiet when Dad was talking about good women and their loyalty, as if she could say anything. One of the things she couldn't talk about, she said. I asked her what she meant by that, and she said that Marisa couldn't have an opinion because she wasn't a good person. Then Aslan got up and left without giving me any further explanation. What do you think? What really happened? Will she still be Dad's pride and joy? No one has contacted me since. If I find out anything else, I'll let you know. Update 3. Hello. So I know you probably didn't expect me to return so soon, but I couldn't help it. Just 2 days after my last post, here I am with new details for those who asked. So, the day before yesterday, I went to see Dad and told him I had decided on a few things. I told him I wanted to help raise Aslan's child and that I was ready to lend her a room. I'd be fine paying for diapers and things like that, but she needs to find a job as soon as possible. Dad wasn't as blunt as usual this time. He paused and then sighed, sat down on the sofa, and told me he thought I hated him. Well, he was right. I asked him why he thought that, and he said it was because Mom hated him too. I quickly told him that she never said that to me. She always told me that Dad loved me and cared about me. I told him the only reason I was disappointed was because of how wrong he was about me. Dad rubbed his eyes and told me he hated himself for many reasons. He said he liked Mom, but they didn't know each other well enough to decide if they were really right for each other. He simply sighed and said that she got pregnant, and that's how he had to marry her. She was a good wife to him, but he never felt the spark between them. Then he met Marisa. When he said that, I could feel my instincts kicking in, and I couldn't move. I didn't know any of this. Dad told me that Marisa sparked a flame in him that he never knew he had. He was so happy with her, and before he knew it, he was in love. Before he could navigate between what was right and what was wrong, She got pregnant too. Well, then he told me he was wrong, but it was too late. She was pregnant. He said he wanted to wait and tell Mom first, but Marisa felt insecure and came to our house and told Mom everything. So Mom confronted Dad, and he accepted his fate. It was a very ugly episode because Mom was hurt, but still, she was polite and asked Dad for a divorce. My parents got divorced because my dad had an affair with my stepmother and got her pregnant. I don't know how it could be worse. A man. Dad paused and looked at me. He told me that he had a good year with Marisa until my mom passed away, and then he had to take me home. Marisa didn't like any of it. She was insecure that Dad might be prioritizing them, and I never had to stay at home long enough to cause Marisa any discomfort. Love makes you do stupid things, he said. I wanted to hit that man in the face, but I controlled myself. I turned to see Marisa standing in the doorway with a bottle of water in hand. She said she was going to her yoga class. I was numb, so I followed her out. But when I stepped outside, she had already gotten into her car and left. I needed to drive to clear my mind anyway, so I sat silently in my car and followed her. She parked outside the yoga club and got out of the car, looking around as if to see who was passing by. Then she went down an alley. I frowned while slowly driving my car closer to get a better view. She looked around and got into another vehicle. She hugged and kissed the driver, and they drove off. I could barely blink. I clenched my jaw, parked my car, and went into the yoga club. I asked about Marisa's registration, and they refused to give me any personal information. I told them I was worried about her and insisted they at least tell me if she was there. They told me they didn't have any clients by that name, so I went back to my car and waited. I don't know what happened, but when the other car arrived, I started recording a video. A man got out, opened his door, hugged her, kissed her, and then gave her a pat on the backside while she happily walked toward the parking lot. Well, before I could make it to the parking lot, I left. So, my dad cheated on my mom, and now they're cheating on him. That's karma. Dad called me several times, but I didn't answer. I'm going to see what happens next because all I want to do now is go and ask Marisa about all of this. Should I do it? Update 4. Hello everyone, this will probably be the last update. I know it's a week late and you probably expected it sooner, but a lot has happened. First, I finally managed to confront Marisa. I went with Dad when he wasn't home and Aslan was asleep. I asked Marisa if she had yoga class that day, and she said she had it every day, even Sundays. She was in the kitchen making pasta. I asked her who her yoga instructor was, and she gave me a random name. I asked if it was a guy, and she said, "Why do you care?" I told her it was funny that she had a male instructor when the club I went to didn't have any female instructors. She told me I was wrong, but her voice sounded surprised, and her hands stopped stirring the pasta sauce. I told her I joined the club yesterday, and that's what they told me. She asked how I knew where the club was, and I told her I followed her the last time she visited. She dropped a spoon, and I picked it up. She turned around and asked, "What are you playing at?" I knew she suspected I knew, but she denied it as expected. So I said, "Whatever. I saw it with my own eyes." She shrugged and told me that Dad would never believe me. That's when I pulled out my phone, played the video, and told her he would believe his own eyes. She stood there, speechless for a minute. Then her expression softened, and she continued cooking the pasta. She said it didn't matter because she was already planning on getting a divorce anyway. My eyes widened. This woman was vile. Dad deserved everything, but damn, she's a snake. She then told me that the guy she goes to see at the club is her lover of 3 years. They rekindled their romance when it was safe, and she said they had fallen in love a long time ago. But at that time, he was married to another woman whose father had hired him at his company, so a lot was at stake. But Marisa had her lover. They decided he should stay with his wife and resolve his finances, then divorce her and be with Marisa in the future. But Marisa got pregnant. So then she was desperate to secure a man's support. And like women should, that's what she said. That's how she decided to stay with Dad. They saw each other sporadically, but then Marisa met her lover again and got pregnant. She chose Dad and told him he had to do something about it. She said that since he hesitated, He had to do something, and that's when he talked to Mom. Now, her lover is a widower and owns a company, and she's ready, and I quote, "Women have to do what they can." But her face froze when she looked over my shoulder. Her smile disappeared the next second because I turned around to find Dad standing in the doorway, stammering with teary eyes. He was shaking. Well, then Dad woke Aslan up, took her to the kitchen, and asked her who her father was. She looked at Marisa and shook her head. She told him she didn't care about the blood because she had always seen him as her dad. He ran his finger through her hair and left. In the next 2 days, Dad told Marisa and Aslan to leave. The divorce is in process, and now Marisa and Aslan are staying at a motel. Dad has asked me to find a therapist for him and has apologized a lot since then. As for Marisa, her lover didn't accept her. He denies having any contact with her. Marisa begged me for her, even asking me to think about Aslan and her pregnancy. What can I say? Marisa, your daughter, your problem.